not suicidal. I would never kill myself. Alright, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know or have heard about Skinwalker Ranch. This is a place that has a long history with Native Americans saying that it's cursed. There was a tribe that was kicked off of this land and cursed it forever. And since then, there's been many UFO sightings in the area, unexplainable situations with electronic equipment malfunctioning, mutilated cows, where there were surgical type incisions or parts of their body were removed, and no blood was found on the ground or on the carcass. Very weird, unexplainable stuff. When Brandon Fugal, this gentleman right here, bought the ranch, he found that the Native Americans were still hanging things on the property fence line to keep whatever's on the property on the property. He bought the ranch from Robert Bigelow, who previously had owned it and participated in U.S. government off-budget or black budget operations to investigate the phenomenons going on locally on the ranch. Brandon was able to acquire it, and after experiencing some things himself, he decided to take a much more structured approach than anyone previously has done when trying to document and understand this phenomenon. So, a lot of people in the scientific community reject this subject altogether, but he is following the principles of science in trying to investigate all the weird things that are seemingly unexplainable. And the Bigelow team described that they found a precognitive, sentient, non-human intelligence. So this is not the only team that has deduced that there seems to be an entity that has an agenda but is pre-speech or pre-communication, but their goal is to try to uncover what is causing this phenomenon.
I told them, I said, you understand, I've owned the ranch for 6 months and I haven't yet to experience anything unusual. I've been going out there periodically to inspect the property, meet with my team, and all I find is a beautiful landscape. So if you're expecting that you're going to come out today and see something unusual, just bear in mind, I own the property, and I have yet to witness anything personally with my own eyes or even feel anything that would be even slightly unusual out on the property. So I look forward to hosting you today. I look forward to it being a fun day looking at a historic landscape that has a very interesting history to it, but don't expect anything more than that. I wanted that disclaimer to be out there at the very beginning. And so we proceeded to fly out to the ranch. We were accompanied by my physicist, who is Eric Bard, who continues to this day as our principal investigator. Eric was also a skeptic. Eric was the physicist brought in to debunk and disprove the claims of the gravitational physics effort that I had funded at our private hangar facility. So I thought, who better to bring in to bring scientific rigor and discipline and a critical eye and critical thinking skills to the ranch than Eric Bard. He'd already disproved these core claims that we'd spent millions of dollars investigating, and was a very, very skeptical person. I mean, you could flat out call him that he's a non-believer. And so Eric Bard, the physicist, accompanied us that day, as well as ranch manager Jim Morse. And upon arrival everyone wanted to hike up the mesa. Everyone wanted to get up on top of the mesa and look out over this incredibly beautiful property. And I was like, okay, fine, knock yourselves out. I was wearing Armani slacks and, black dress shoes, and I didn't want to get dirty, and I was trying to somehow get a line out at the time to check my voicemail. And so they proceeded to hike up to the top of the mesa, and within minutes, I hear Eric Bard, the physicist, start shouting down, Brandon, get up here. I look up and I yell, I said, really? You really want me to hike up? You want me to run up the face of the mesa to join you? He says, yes, get up here right now. And he's pointing to his iPhone. So I shrug, go booking it up the face of the mesa in my dress shoes and my slacks. And as I arrive out of breath at the top of the mesa, he's sitting there looking at his phone and motions for me to watch his iPhone. We sit there in silence for minutes. Nothing's happening. I see nothing unusual. I'm like, what are you talking about? And Eric says, well, you should have seen it. My phone was malfunctioning in the most strange ways. It was turning all sorts of magenta purple color. And I've never seen this. It was very, very unusual. And I just shrugged. I said, well, it's not doing it now. And about that time, the others that were up there on the mesa said that they were feeling a little bit woozy, feeling a little uneasy. They weren't, and wanted to hike back down and proceed with the tour of the ranch. And so we all went down and proceeded to drive out to Homestead 2, which is the cluster of old structures that seems to be a center of gravity for strange phenomena on the property. And as we pull up to Homestead 2, and we're all kind of congregating out in front of those old structures, it was interesting. A few people said, well, do you feel the ground shifting? And even Eric Bard said, yeah, I feel, you guys feeling this sensation that I'm feeling, kind of vertigo? And I was kind of across the courtyard from them, and I just smiled and said, no, I don't feel anything. And then all of a sudden, Eric says, my phone's doing it again. My phone's malfunctioning again. Well, I learned from earlier that I need to move fast if I'm going to see, whatever is happening. And so I dart over to his side, and sure enough, his whole phone had turned purple, had turned this magenta purplish color, and was flashing and acting all erratically. And everyone was talking about how they were feeling uneasy. Well, thank goodness he had the presence of mind to screen capture the malfunctioning phone. I'll share that with you right now.
Thank you.
And you can see it. In fact, he was taking photos of me right before, standing in the entry to Homestead 2 in front of the doorway, just before they started feeling uneasy, and then ultimately the smartphone malfunction started occurring. It was strange. My brother Cameron, who is a very skilled aviator, has multiple degrees in aviation science and management, and my little brother Matthew, who runs operations, who were there, said that they weren't comfortable staying. They said, we want to leave. We'll go to the airport. Call us later on today when you're available, but we're feeling uneasy, which I thought was the silliest thing. I'm like, come on, really?
How many people from Area 51?
It was, well, so there was the surgeon, the doctor, and then he was accompanied by two security professionals. One was the former president of the California Hells Angels, and another one was a contractor. And then he had his son, who was a grown adult. I don't know how old he was, but his son also accompanied. So it was a group of four of them that joined. At the time, my brothers, Eric Bard, who was my consulting physicist, and Jim Morse, ranch manager. And they're all witnessing this.
So what was the conversation like? They signed the paperwork, they signed the non-disclosure, the waiver. What are they
Well-
hoping to see?
Well, I asked them, I said, "Geez," after telling them, I've never seen a UFO. I've owned the ranch for 6 months, and all I've seen is a strikingly beautiful landscape. And I'm skeptical. I've never seen anything like that I can report. And I proceeded to ask them, I said, we're sitting there preparing to leave for Skinwalker Ranch. I said, do you guys really believe in this UFO crap? And the two security guys, the two security professionals that were accompanying the doctor said no. They shook their heads, no, we don't believe it. And the doctor just smiled. And he says, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. You have no idea what is real. And we all just kind of shrugged it off. And I kind of winked at the two security guards knowingly that, oh yeah, you know, the doctor's, you know, probably just another UFO nut, but that's okay. He's a nice enough guy. So anyways, we find ourselves out at Homestead 2. Smartphone malfunctioning. Everyone's feeling these physical effects. My brothers are feeling uneasy enough that they want to leave, and they leave. They're happier driving and sitting at the airport for hours until I tell them that we're ready to fly back. And I'm finding the whole thing interesting. Well, as we're all discussing kind of the history of Skinwalker Ranch and the homesteads, you know, we proceed to kind of get our phones out to take some pictures. I felt like it was a good photo opportunity. And lo and behold, my phone's dead. It had previously been at 80% charge. My phone's completely dead. Eric Bard's phone that had recorded that where he had screen captured the anomaly, the strange colors and flashing was dead. The others' phones were dead. So we didn't have our cameras. So I thought, darn, well, we better go take them back to the ranch house and plug them in and let them charge up. But we don't want to disrupt our day because of it. It was very frustrating. And so we took the phones back, put them in chargers, and then we proceeded to return back out to the old homesteads. This time we drove all the way back out to Homestead 3, which is beyond Homestead 2, and it's a single structure. It's pretty haunting looking. And we pull up around the backside of the structure. This is October 14th of 2016. And we all pile out and we all walk around the other side. And again, we're looking at the landscape and everyone's visiting and having a good experience. I mean, my brothers have left and returned to the airport, awaiting a call, you know, hours later. And we're just visiting. And after about 10 minutes, I asked, well, where's George, the big guy, the security, the 6'6" security professional that was there wasn't present, and for some reason we kind of lost track of him. And everyone said, well, when we all piled out of the open air Polaris, UTV, the Ranger, no one really paid attention. I said, well, let me go try to find him. So I proceed to walk around to the back of the Homestead 3, to find George. And right as I'm coming around the corner in this grass area where we'd parked it, and the vehicle being off in the distance, it was as if something cupped my ears. It was all of my hearing was impacted. It was as if I walked into a soundproof room. Have you ever been into an anechoic chamber or a soundproof room?
I have.
And that sensation, the only thing you can do to simulate it right now is by cupping your ears.
It's like a frequency change.
Yeah, all of the ambient noise disappears. And I thought it was the strangest thing. It was the strangest sensation. And then I see off in the distance, standing fully upright, this 6'6" giant of a man in the back of this UTV. And I thought, that's odd. So I yell his name, George. And I can hear kind of muffled. It's almost like yelling underwater. I thought that was strange. And I proceed to walk to get closer, and he's not responding. And as I near the vehicle and shout his name again, he's standing upright with his eyes closed. And right as I'm nearing the vehicle, all of the ambient noise, all of the sound comes back, is restored. And as I yell his name again, his eyes fluttered open. And he looked down at me. And I said, "What's going on? Did something happen? What's going on?" And he said, "Well, that was weird." And I asked him, I said, "What was weird? What is weird?" And he says, "Well, when you all jumped out, when you pulled up and you stopped the vehicle and you all jumped out, I stood up and found myself paralyzed. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move, and then everything went black." And he asked, how long have I been here? And I said, "About 10 minutes. And he just shook his head, was obviously disturbed. I asked him, I said, "Has this ever happened to you in your life? Have you ever had this experience?" And he said, "No, I've never experienced anything like this." 10 minutes
Wow.
had passed. Who knows what happened, but he felt odd. He expressed the fact that he felt a little bit off, and we proceeded to gather everyone up and jump back in the vehicles. And so as we're going back to retrieve our phones to have our cameras, we're driving on that dirt road at the base of the mesa. You know, that main road that you see on the dock.
So this ranch has consistently experienced unexplained, like poltergeist type phenomena, but what they're observing is specifically interference with electronic equipment. And the really interesting part, I think let's skip toward, I do want to cover the spies on the ranch part, but let's skip into this part. And the aerial phenomenon, not just of UFO type orbs appearing in the sky, but they experience an issue where they're flying and the altimeter is reading that something is 50 feet below the aircraft. And as they continue flying and climbing, and this thing maintains whatever is triggering, because the altimeter doesn't register unless you're less than 200 feet from the ground, I believe. And this altimeter, as they're flying, consistently registers that there's something between 40 and 50 feet below the aircraft as they're flying around. So they are specifically trying to investigate this aerial trigger. Something is seemingly guarding the airspace. That's really weird. Really weird.
Have witnessed with multiple witnesses at my side and have continued to document over the last 7 years. What we are seeing at Skinwalker Ranch is real, and it has the ability to completely change the way we look at the world, our place in the universe, and how we view reality.
Back to DC. They called you in for some type of a briefing. How receptive were they?
Very. They're very receptive, very respectful. We preceded the briefing with me, preparing with the team, with Eric Bard, and at the time Dr. Jim Segala, who was participating in the first year of our docuseries, and another senior advisor. We proceeded to present a full keynote PowerPoint presentation, and it was very evident that those individuals who held high levels of position, of seniority, were respectful and took this seriously and had knowledge that these things are real.
Who exactly were you briefing? Was it the Senate Intelligence Committee or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a good opportunity for me to demonstrate how serious I took my stewardship of the property, and the fact that we are using scientific discipline and rigor in order to address these topics and the phenomena at the ranch. I tell people all the time, I use the word steward. I really believe that this is a stewardship, not just an ownership. And having a collaborative partnership.
You know, I'm going to be honest, with all the fucking UFO disclosures and shit, part of me would be tempted to be skeptical and say that he's generating more sensational evidence at the behest of the government. But because we are listening to the Shawn Ryan show, I don't feel the need to, really turn on my bullshit detector because, as he stated at the beginning of the interview, it took him 5 years to line up an interview with this guy. And some of this stuff can be seen in the actual, I don't know what to call it, documentary or TV show, Skinwalker Ranch. Um, there's not a lot of evidence, but you can see like a light show up in the sky. You can see the helicopter registering. Like some of the things he's referencing are documented as part of a television show, which, I don't know how much stock you can put in a produced TV show, but I would like to believe that I'm not wasting my time taking him seriously. He seems to be a serious person who's taking, the subject matter seriously. He started out as a skeptic and is simply recognizing that there's some weird things that are going on the ranch. So that's why he's not trying to like sell uh some grand, narrative. He's just like, yeah, there's this weird stuff keeps going on, and we're trying to understand and measure it with scientific instruments.
With people who can bring skills and resources to the table to better understand what is happening is a key, a hallmark of our investigation.
Has the Intelligence Committee at the Senate offered any funding or any assistance?
I haven't asked for any. I don't have any interest. I have no interest in asking for money, engaging the government. I've never held a security clearance.
Okay.
I don't have any interest in that type of formal engagement. I am interested in being transparent and collaborative with anyone, including the general public. I mean, the docuseries is my effort to disclose to the public the reality of our investigation as it unfolds. And that is perhaps one of the most exciting parts of this effort, this endeavor that I would have never anticipated, is the opportunity to allow the public a view behind the scenes as the investigation progresses. Show me another effort on the planet where there's a 24-hour live stream for the public to access, where there is more collaboration and more open disclosure and presentation of events, of data and activity. I don't believe there has ever been an effort like this.
I don't either. So History Channel got a hold of you. You guys made the negotiation, and the docuseries started. Travis Taylor got introduced.
Yeah. So,
you had placed every member on that team, correct?
Right.
You had
until
vetted
that time,
until then.
until the docuseries effort. And the History Channel, they didn't require it. They suggested it. They said, we'd like to suggest bringing in one person, a physicist, a credentialed physicist, who is a skeptic, who will challenge the team. And I wasn't excited. The team had no interest in bringing in another member of the family. I mean, they didn't want to bring someone in to potentially ruin the dynamic that we had created. But we flew everyone out to Los Angeles to meet with Dr. Taylor and production. And I was pleasantly surprised at how qualified Dr. Taylor. I mean, he has 2 PhDs in physics. He has multiple master's degrees. He's a published author. He's worked with NASA, with Army intelligence. He's worked on classified programs. I was impressed with his credentials. Anyone who looks at his profile, at his credentials, and scoffs, they're being disingenuous.
It came out later on the docuseries that he was on the UAP UFO task force for the Pentagon,
Right. Well,
which flew under the radar for you and the rest of your
it
team.
was shocking, and it frankly pissed off several members of my team. They felt betrayed to a degree for a while. The fact that Dr. Taylor had taken a position as the chief scientist for the UAP task force at the Pentagon and had not disclosed to the team what was going on and that he was working in that capacity was a significant concern. We had to talk through that. And Dr. Taylor, who was called on the carpet, I mean, to essentially account for the situation, said that, look, after it became known that he was consulting with Skinwalker Ranch, he was part of our effort. A senior official with the Pentagon reached out to him and asked him to engage, but made him do so under certain confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements. I mean, he was under oath to not disclose the nature or his involvement with the UAP task force. And I have to respect the fact that he kept that confidence.
How did that make you feel? Let's just take Travis out of the equation. You had already gone to D.C., you had briefed the Senate Intelligence Committee, and now they have an asset unannounced to you working at your property that you're funding the experiments on. And how long? That went on for what, 2-3 years?
3 years, yeah.
3 years, you didn't know. And then it gets disclosed.
Yeah.
How did that, and by the way,
It was mind-blowing.
there's also all this surveillance going on with what, 1.6 gigahertz, I believe, and you have the planes flying, very obvious surveillance patterns over the ranch. You have Blackhawks, you have Chinooks flying around all the time.
Covert military surveillance seems to be a constant.
And so, how did that make you feel, knowing that you had an asset of the U.S. government involved in your investigation?
Mixed feelings at the time. I respected the fact that Travis did keep it confidential. The fact that he didn't pull anyone aside and whisper to them what he was doing speaks to his integrity. And I think that's important. That's important no matter how it looks. The reality is he kept his oaths. He did not violate his NDAs, even when he was probably under a lot of pressure, feeling like he probably should. And I'm sure he desperately wanted to disclose it. So I have to respect his integrity. I also have to point out that Travis Taylor is not the principal investigator. The chief scientist at Skinwalker Ranch, going on 7 years, is Eric Bard. Eric Bard is the one who lives at Skinwalker Ranch, who lives in the command center full-time, has structured the platforms, is conducting the scientific investigation and leading it. Dr. Taylor, while an important member of the team and someone that I respect I actually love Dr. Taylor. I think he's been an incredible influence and asset to us. He's a consulting physicist, and he's there to aid the team, but he's not manipulating the investigation. I can say with absolute certainty he has not manipulated the data, the science, or anything else relative to the ranch. I mean, he's been a very supportive participant and physicist that has been a great complementary fit with Eric and the team. Wasn't always that way. We had a few months at the very beginning that were a little rocky as everyone was kind of trying to find their footing. You know, Dragon, for example, took issue with feeling marginalized and felt talked down to at times by Dr. Taylor and other scientists. And you know, there's always a period of time when people are trying to build relationships of trust with each other, and you know, starting this effort was no different. But yeah, I have not been as concerned with what transpired, simply because I respect the fact that Dr. Taylor didn't breach any of his oaths or NDAs, and he hasn't been the one directing the science investigation. He's been a great complement and supporter.
Okay. There's right off the bat, and at the very beginning of the docuseries, there was the number one rule seemed to have been no digging,
Right.
no going below the ground. What prompted that?
That had been told. We were told that digging on the property resulted in negative outcomes, that people would be harmed, that any.
So there's claims that there's something called a hitchhiker effect, where Bigelow, like he mentioned it in the interview, Bigelow may have sold partially because team members, including himself and his family, were reporting certain people were seeing black shadowy figures, like a Skinwalker or Slender Man, something like that. So let's go over here. This is a paper that goes over Pentagon's findings. The hitchhiker effect and models of contagion. AAWSAP. I don't know what that is. Oh, Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program, and was kept secret from the public until the New York Times broke the story in 2017. All 5 DIA personnel deployed to the ranch experienced profound and anomalies while on the property, and more importantly, all 5 brought something home with them. The leader of these 5 military personnel was a naval intelligence officer whom we gave the pseudonym Jonathan Axelrod. He was an accomplished engineer who would eventually be promoted to the rank of a 2-star admiral with naval intelligence, who possessed top secret, sensitive compartmented information, TSSCI, clearances at the time of his ranch visit. They experienced an anomaly on the ranch that caused a lot of fear in all 3 men. He was accompanied by Jim Costigan and David Wilson. Within a month of arriving back home in Virginia, a plethora of paranormal phenomena suddenly erupted in Axelrod's home. For several years following his July 2009 and subsequent trips to the ranch, his wife and teenage children were subject to nightmarish dogmen appearing in their backyard, to blue, red, yellow, and white orbs routinely floating through the home and in the yard, to black shadow people standing over their beds when they awoke, and to a relentless barrage of loud, unexplained footsteps walking up and down the stairs of their house. The The Axelrod teenagers endured some very scary episodes in their bedroom. Paul, the younger, claims to have been attacked by blue and red orbs in his bedroom on February 7th, 2011, but they kept quiet about their strange experiences. So imagine Paul's shock when he was approached by one of his high school friends in 2011 who told him that on the previous night he had looked out his bedroom window and had witnessed a large wolf-like creature standing outside his bedroom looking at him. A few weeks later, another friend told Paul of seeing strange blue lights flying around his backyard. These revelations by the two friends came without prompting from Paul. In other words, they cannot be dismissed as Me Too phenomena. The experience by Paul's school friends suggests that the perception of bizarre creatures and blue orbs was transferable beyond the Axelrod family home and out into the neighborhood. It's unlikely that these events could be explained as a series of improbable coincidences. The family also suffered health effects, with the wife suffering flare-ups of lupus and Raynaud's disease. Both Axelrod teenagers had flu-like symptoms. Wow. Even ranch owner and BAASS founder Robert Bigelow reported numerous anomalies and unusual activity in his home in the month and years after visiting Skinwalker Ranch. So, I mean, I don't want to read this whole thing, but this is very interesting. Wow. Hmm. And then this is a Reddit post that also goes into the orbs and some of the experiences on the ranch crew having similar phenomenon. I will link both of these in the video description.
Anytime the earth was disturbed, bad things happened. And taking into account the health and safety of those involved, and the fact that this is a televised effort. This is an effort being documented by dozens of professionals, arguably the leading documentary professionals in the country. I felt it was wise to be cautious. I gave Dragon specific direction to limit any digging activity, anything that would disturb the earth that may stimulate negative response that would result in injury or harm. And it really was a fear. It still is. We still have incidents that have occurred in tandem with experimental activity, with disturbing the earth. I mean, we had, Tom Lewis, who, last year ended up in the hospital in the emergency room with a cardiac episode that occurred immediately simultaneous with digging activity into the base of the mesa. Was that a coincidence? I don't think so. There was, the 1.6 gigahertz that the frequency showed up. There was equipment malfunction that was captured on camera, and then unfortunately, Tom Lewis is recorded going down on his knees with a cardiac arrest, has to be run to the hospital by Dragon, and he's still being monitored. And thankfully, he's almost back to 100%, but it was really concerning. We've had a number of incidents where people have ended up in the hospital with mysterious illnesses and injuries. And a lot of those occasions seem to be attended by digging activity with aggressive activity on the ranch. Have I loosened that up since the first season, from those first months? Yes. I mean, when my team tells me, let us dig, when I have Thomas Winterton, who spent a week in the hospital fighting for his life as a result of injuries that he believes and the doctors believe are connected to his activity on the ranch, when Thomas Winterton is hell-bent on digging deeper, both figuratively and literally, to find out what is happening, the mechanism behind this strange activity at the ranch, I have to defer to them. I have to give them the latitude to get to the bottom of the truth and take more aggressive measures to hopefully get some answers. And so we've relaxed it. We've added more safety precautions since. But the no digging rule and the mandate that I gave years ago has been relaxed, but it's been as a result of both pressure and also respectful requests from the team to be able to do their work.
There's so many aspects of this ranch that I want to cover. It's
Fire away.
it's hard to organize it all into one thing. So I'm just going to stick with the digging. But you guys are finding some type of a metal substance within the mesa.
Right.
You've seen UAPs fly above the mesa, hover above the mesa, fly into the mesa, fly out of the mesa. Are you going to excavate that site?
We're working on that. The mesa is a very unstable environment. The rocks, very unstable. Those boulders at the base that you see came from the top.
Okay.
Every time that we dig, that we conduct any type of excavation or exploratory activity and disturb the earth, it's very dangerous. We see material come down. It's a dangerous environment. We also don't want to damage the very technology or artifact or whatever may be buried in the mesa that is unnatural, that may be connected to the strange activity. The metallic substance that was recovered through the biopsy, through the drilling exercises that was analyzed by the University of Utah and shown to be, not naturally occurring, and according to Dr. Taylor and others, to be matching the composition of the same material that would cover the space shuttle, that would shield a craft at entry, from extreme heat. That type of material that has been extracted from the mesa is real. It accompanies something else. I mean, I believe that it's just the tip of the iceberg of what may lie beneath, and we don't want to damage the very thing that may hold the key to getting the answers. So we're having to conduct a very careful biopsy and probing effort in the mesa due to both the health and safety concerns of the instability of the environment coming down on us literally in the middle of it, and also the fact that we don't want to damage the very object or the material that may lie within. It's like, imagine if there's a Stargate, to use a science fiction example. If there's a 1,000,000-year-old Stargate that has some type of advanced technology that is involved with the UAP activity and the other strangeness that seems to be triggered with high frequency in the area, and that is somehow it's buried in that mesa, or there's a base. We don't want to damage, we don't want to blow up the very technology or the very device that may hold the key to understanding the nature of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I completely understand. I mean, it seems indestructible. When I saw that drill go in there, and it just got a little bit of substance, and it stopped the drill. I mean, how do you sleep at night? What do you think is what do you think is in there?
I don't sleep at night. I hardly get any sleep. I'm hell bent on getting the answers. Like I've said, I want the answers more than anyone. I'm putting my money and my reputation where my mouth is, and I want.
Man, the descriptions of the hitchhiker effect. We're gonna jump forward to intelligence with volition. But the descriptions, this is it's a very detailed breakdown of not just direct family members, but um, obviously neighborhood friends, and even um, there's related evidence from 1973 when noted illusionist and psychokinetic practitioner Uri Geller was undergoing a series of tests on his psychic ability at the prestigious Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. A series of bizarre events began to unfold in both the lab itself and at the homes of the scientists who were conducting the studies. As with Skinwalker Ranch visitors, many of the researchers involved had the highest level of security clearances, so that the ghosts love it when you have a clearance. They're like, yes, score. I'm going to get to read government documents. But yeah, this is very interesting and very deeply explores social contagion, infectious agent model, social contagion model, previous evidence of transmissibility, poltergeist, and contagion. Just a ton of just fascinating, fascinating information coming out of government-funded research with credentialed leaders and scientists. Absolutely crazy.
But seems to be a center of gravity for activity within an expanse of property that is hosting a diversity of incidents and activities. So that's what I think drives a lot of our investigation and a lot of the experimental activity. Is it's the data that we continue to gather from the triangle, from the homesteads, from the mesa, that is driving us forward.
How would you? So there's been a number of events that have happened through your guys' experiments within the triangle, and it sounds like the triangle, well, it's an actual triangle on the ground, and then it seems to be some type of an invisible force field, maybe I would call it.
No, that region of the property, I mean, you see kind of this triangular formation, or really the triangular roadway system that kind of comes together at that point. But it does seem to be a focal point there along the Mesa Plateau, and it is a central point as you look at the ranch relative to the, where the command center and the homestead 1 is in relation to the homesteads out on the far west side of the property. The anomaly that we've seen, the people call it the blob, but this thing that they've caught on camera, and it's not just from one point of view, it's been from multiple camera points of view and different types of recording devices, different types of cameras that have recorded this thing, this anomaly, as Dr. Taylor would call it, appears to disrupt the experimental activities that occur. It deflects. We've seen rockets deflected. I mean, in that area, we launched balloons. You probably remember early in the docuseries effort, we had a professor from the University of Alabama at Huntsville that came out, who is an expert instrumented balloon experimentalist and operator. And we never recovered the primary balloon they set up right above the triangle. It literally disappeared. And it disappeared right at the moment that it started registering.
Another thing that I'm not sure if they're going to cover is the fact that there's been light phenomenon that has been observed, light shining, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming man, there's just so many mountains. The mesa. What is the mesa? I mean, I guess it must be here or here, but supposedly behind this ridgeline, residents of the ranch have witnessed bright lights, like the spotlights that that movie, just bright spotlights. It's a cone of white light shooting toward the sky. This phenomenon has been reported, and there's no equipment out there. Just a bright white light shining up in the sky, a beam of light. I don't know.
Elevated activity when the meters started going off, all of a sudden it
I mean, there's been 40 people that claim to have experienced hitchhiker effects simply from watching the webcam at the ranch. There is a webcam hosted at the ranch, and some people are claiming that they've had these unwelcome hitchhiker, manifestations of orbs and shadowy figures as a result of not even going there.
disappeared and it has never been recovered. And we've searched. I mean, we've conducted exhaustive searches of the area, looked at all of the surrounding property, via the helicopter, even on the ground, and have never found a trace of where that balloon could have ended up. And
Wow, I didn't realize that you guys never found it.
No.
It seems to be that
it just disappeared.
from 31 feet to what, 300 feet seems to be the.
Yeah, and it's transient.
Okay.
It's not constant. I mean, it comes and goes. There's something very unpredictable in some respects, but the fact that we've had even lasers bend. You probably remember when
Yep.
they were conducting the experiments and actually had a laser pointed up, and the laser was documented as bending, as essentially being deflected off of space. To this day, those who have looked at that footage, looked at that data, remain just baffled by what they've recorded. Even the UFO sightings that have occurred above the triangle in tandem with some of these experimental activities not only continue, but they've been prominent. I think it's not lost on anyone that the object that was seen coming out of the base of the mesa, that large orb or whatever, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Man, how'd you like to be these people, right? Just right up the street? I don't know how I'd feel about that. The closest neighbor to Skinwalker Ranch. That doesn't sound like a great selling point for buying property.
That exited the mesa was not far from that region. I mean, it all is essentially interconnected.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting center of gravity for a lot of the phenomena, and that's why we continue to launch rockets and experiments, even focus the helicopter and other craft in that area with the instrumentation, and we'll see what we are able to ultimately uncover. I think taking all of that data cumulatively and having that essentially paint a picture or pull together this grand tapestry that we can then step back from and look at, the patterns. One of the things we brought Omnitech on for is their artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. I mean, they have AI and ML patterns, or AI and ML platforms that will be able to better identify potential patterns that are occurring, that'll help us, I think, weed out, separate the signal from the noise, separate that which may be a foreign adversary or even some naturally caused phenomena from something that is truly unusual.
The so many things have happened above the triangle, and I think the first thing that I saw that that got me was, I believe it was your brother was flying the helicopter over it. And I can't remember what altitude he was at, but it said his altimeter said I believe it was 40 feet. And
Right.
he was several hundred feet.
Yeah. Well, it essentially was bouncing. The radar altimeter was identifying something 40 to 50 feet below the helicopter when he's thousands of feet up in the air, when he's 5,000 feet above the triangle. And it was tracking with the helicopter. And a lot of people have tried to either debunk or try to explain what was documented during that exercise. And there really is no satisfactory explanation for it. I mean, we've consulted with the manufacturer. I mean, he's called his resources. My brother, he has over 9,000 hours of flight time, is one of the most seasoned aviators in the region, and he knows this equipment inside out. I mean, he consults with the experts relative to how it operates and what he should expect and what is, what is to really, what could be involved, and there's really no explanation exactly for what occurred there, and it's disturbing. Well, after that flight, Cameron was really hesitant as to whether he wanted to come back on the property again.
Really?
Because just the danger associated with, the instruments, with the fact that there's something up in the air tracking with the helicopter that is unseen. Well, and we saw, most recently, the high-speed camera operator captured a big silver, looked like a metallic object, but some type of silver spherical object that was tracking behind the helicopter with one of the more recent exercises being conducted. And a lot of people say, oh, well, they were applying a filter, because there was a filter applied in order to bring out some of the features of that a little bit more prominently. But it doesn't negate the fact that it was there. I mean, I've seen unfiltered, footage of that. And there is definitely an object. There's a round spherical object that is tracking with the helicopter during that exercise. And this is not a drone. This isn't something that we can assign some either natural cause to or point to some known technology. It seems very unusual.
The other thing that really caught my attention, probably more than anything, is the GPS trackers that they were dropping out of the helicopter.
Right.
With the streamers. And
Right.
it seemed to be almost bouncing off an invisible object. Like they would fall like this and just bounce off of nothing.
Yeah. End up in a completely different region of the ranch. Yeah. And they're being deflected off of something, and that speaks to the fact that we believe that there is some anomaly. There is some irregular, whether it be an object or field or something that we truly can't explain, but is real, that has a tangible impact on the experiments, whether it be the rockets, whether it be the sensors, the GPS, the bottle drop experiment, for example.
The flamethrower.
Yeah, the flamethrower where it split.
That went around
Yeah.
nothing. The flame turned into a horseshoe, went around nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the rockets, the laser beams, the LiDAR.
Yeah, how do you explain that?
The helicopter being pushed around.
Yeah.
The plane. I mean, it's
Well,
the drones. What was it, 250 drones you guys lifted?
yeah,
out
over
of?
200 drones, fully charged, carefully calibrated, with over 20 experts from Sky Elements who conduct more of these drone exercises across the country than any other company. I mean, they are the experts. They are the gold standard, left completely baffled. And they went on record with the fact that they've never seen anything like this occur. That their equipment completely malfunctioned in the area of the triangle and on the ranch. We're going to be bringing them back.
They think there's something weird under the mesa. And if this is Mesa drill site here, this rock sticks out to me. I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything special about it, but this ball of rock is just it's just an abnormal feature compared to everything else around it. It's a vein of rock that coincidentally appears to be, kind of lined up with the highest elevation point that we see around here. This appears to be the tallest point. And then you've got this weird, it's just kind of interesting. Got this weird vein of rock. It's a little bit offset from the triangle. I don't know. This is fascinating. I don't know if I want to go out there and catch a friggin' hitchhiker, because that doesn't sound fun. I like sleeping and not waking up with a dark, shadowy figure standing over my bed. Uh-oh, I just yawned. Does that mean I caught the Skinwalker shit? Oh, fuck.
What do you
Nobody
do
said bless you,
when you're
so
conducting a scientific investigation, when you're trying to follow the scientific method? You repeat. You repeat the experiment, you gather more data. We're trying, in service to coming to some conclusion or drawing a more, I think, a more accurate hypothesis, we're trying to gather more data and repeat these experiments to see if we observe similar phenomena or other anomalies that occur. And we're active with that. At first, I was hesitant to deploy the helicopter. You have a very expensive piece of equipment. I have my brother, who I love. I don't want him in harm's way. But he's become much like Thomas Winterton, who, when faced with danger, when faced with the risks, and even having a personal set of experiences dealing with this, instead of running away or deciding to sit this one out, he's saying, bring it on. He's saying,
All right, I'm the captain, so I say that we fast forward a little bit.
Just a funny acronym that he pulled out of the air that actually matched up with the proper description. Our stewardship and
We're gonna go to. We're not.
I
in
don't
control.
really care who or what it is. I just want to understand the nature of it and what we are dealing with. I can handle the truth,
You can't
even
handle
if it's
the
a
truth.
foreign adversary. Let's say, for example, let's speculate that this is some foreign adversary, that it's another country that is somehow using the basin and this area as a testing ground, and they're testing all sorts of advanced technologies, in service to warfare in the future, whatever. Identifying who those actors are and how they're using that technology and how it works. Tell me that that's not important. I mean, from a national security standpoint, what we're doing out there is extremely important.
Yeah.
In bringing my Omnitech team on board and having them engaged. They're out there right now. As we sit here speaking, they are present. They are on the ranch with the team conducting research and experimental activities. They've said, look, if this ends up being another country that is somehow deploying these kind of technologies that can manipulate GPS on command, that can literally manipulate closed systems in this fashion and create all of these type of effects and anomalies, then we have we have reason for concern.
Yeah. No.
In fact,
kidding.
I find that more terrifying. If there's a bad actor, a known adversary.
This is the beam. This is one photo of the beam coming from behind the mesa. And you know, the other thing that really just got my brain going is, you know, I'm sure that these are photoshopped probably, but how many UFO photos have been discounted and written off as fake? And now that we're starting to take it seriously, how many images are there out there that were just dismissed that could be real? Man.
That has access to technology and is using this as a proving ground. The implications are staggering.
Yeah. You know, this just popped in my head when the UAPs flew into the mesa and then out of the mesa. Are these solid objects? Do you believe they're solid objects, or is this some type of
Good question. What I saw looked
illusion?
like a solid object. So the UFO that I saw above the mesa looked like a solid object. In fact, it had kind of a reflective property. I remember those, you know, with even the witnesses mentioned that, you know, it seemed to be a.
I saw these Jersey barriers on Google Maps and I was like, what the fuck is that? But now I see this is where they have the road blocked, right here. Well, I thought that this would show it better. It shows it worse. Okay, never mind. We'll just zoom in. Zoom it right in. Haha. So here's the gate. And then here's their Jersey barriers. This is a pretty traditional, like, rough government way to slow vehicles down, is just create S-turns with Jersey barriers. So, but you can see them here. That's what made me, I was like, oh, that's what those are.
A very solid object with reflective properties. I remember the sun going down on the other side of the property, and it seemed to be reflecting. The UAP that you're referring to, the most recent that came down from the sky, dropped into the mesa in the east field, and then seconds later is seen exiting the base of the mesa below the helicopter.
Yes.
It is definitely transmedium, or what people refer to as a transmedium, unidentified aerial phenomena. Is it solid? Does it take solid form when it exits? Who knows? The nature of these objects, of these technologies that are being deployed, it's elusive.
Yeah.
But it definitely has an impact on the instruments. I mean, when we see some of this activity occurring, you know,
That's a nice tinfoil hat.
you see the spectrum
One of the best I've
analyzers
ever
going
seen.
crazy. Our spectrum analyzer platforms are recording and documenting all sorts of strange readings that accompany a lot of this activity, especially when we go back and we review the footage and we timestamp everything and we draw direct connection between the activity, the spectrum analyzer results, and what is visually.
One of these orbs flew over a cow, and the cow toppled over dead shortly thereafter, or about the same time. Baller.
Documented.
I think we've covered just about everything. There's one more thing I want to cover. We had a discussion last night about faith, and I shared my journey with you, and you had mentioned that I believe I asked you how this has affected your faith, and you had mentioned that since you have owned the ranch, it has actually strengthened your faith.
Yeah, shockingly.
How is I'm not familiar with the Church of Latter-day Saints. I did a little bit of research, and it sounds like, how do I describe this? It sounds like the earth is not the center of the universe, and you don't believe that we are the only beings in the universe.
Correct. Shawn, I was raised to believe that there are worlds without number, that we're not alone in the universe. Mormon theology speaks to, the fact that we're not alone in the universe, that we're part of a divinely constructed, intelligently designed reality, that there's a higher power, that the nature of reality and really our place in the universe is much more complex than we can even comprehend at this stage of our evolution. What I have seen at Skinwalker Ranch, what we are documenting, has only strengthened what I was raised to believe, that we really aren't alone, that there is something more at play here. And it could be interdimensional or multidimensional. I mean, anyone who believes in an afterlife, if you believe that your consciousness or your soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it survives after your body is destroyed or you die, congratulations. I think you believe in a multidimensional, you believe in interdimensional theory in that physics. And I think that what we're seeing at the ranch could very well be partially interdimensional in origin and nature.
So I've spent a lot of time thinking about these type of ideas, and I've also taken, at this point, a lot of psychedelic drugs. I've had a lot of deeply moving and sometimes difficult experiences trying to understand myself, my decisions. I'm just as stupid as anybody else. And I truly at this point believe that whatever you want to call it, your consciousness, your spirit, whatever it is that makes you you, beyond the flesh and bones, I don't believe I don't believe it can be destroyed. I think it exists in perpetuity, and I think it returns here. That's my sincere belief, is that we return here over and over and over. And I'm not just saying that to scare you into the idea that you should work on yourself and figure life out, because every time you have a bad go at it, and you just create a horrible experience for yourself that is just chaotic and messy and not enjoyable or enlightening, I think that you carry that forward. And I think the exact opposite is true. If you become enlightened and enriched and a better person, I think you carry a piece of that through, and I think our lives are cumulative. And so if you're going to be here for a while, whether or not you realize it lifetime to lifetime, there is some carryover, there is some bleed through, and you are a culmination of multiple lifetimes, if that's how it works. I could be full of shit, who fucking knows? But I'm just saying, your starting point may be different if your ending point is as good as you can make it. You know what I mean? If you're as educated and you have the most understanding that you can, there is a concept with the reincarnation world that tells you that you, as a child, you will remember portions of your previous life up to a certain age. And those formative years do a lot of shaping. So if you have knowledge that carries forward, you are going to have an advantage. You are going to forget most of it at some point, but we do with every other experience too. I mean, do you remember 5th grade? Does that mean that it didn't happen? Still probably learned something in 5th grade, even if you don't remember exactly what it was. So, anyway, the other thing that I'm going to touch on is this episode was censored by YouTube because they started talking about faith. I started to let it play. I'm not going to get into the rest of it because this episode is slapped with an 18 plus restriction, and I'd prefer not to get the same thing slapped on my content because of their discussion. So if you want to check it out, it's excellent. It's 4 hours. I didn't want to make it that long. I just wanted to discuss some of the more interesting portions of it. Skinwalker Ranch has been something that I've been fascinated with since I first heard about Roswell, and I mean, it's been 20 years now. You know, I was like 19 or 20 years old when I first found out about this stuff. I've been kind of paying attention since then, and very curious. Curious but cautious. I also know that people see a lot of UFOs and have had some interactions with entities in national parks. There's even a theory that some people believe that Teddy Roosevelt, the man that rolled out most of our national parks, there's a theory that the U.S. government sanctions abductions in the national forests and national parks because there's so many people that have experiences on these lands. So when I'm out there camping, you know, I'm not trying to tempt fate. I'm not like, seeing some light flying around up there. I'm gonna shine a flashlight at it and tell them to come on over because, for a long time I was very curious and I might have been tempted, but now that more information is coming out, there's a lot of people that are saying that these people are not very friendly when they do abduct you and perform experiments on you and shove things up in your orifices and take your blood and your semen, sometimes supposedly eggs from females. Who friggin' knows? But I don't want to find out. I don't want to turn into Eric Cartman where I come back and I keep having a satellite dish deploy out of my rear end. All right. Well, I hope you guys had a good time. I fucking loved it. I had a great time looking at Google Maps, fucking trying to find anomalies, trying to find evidence of, of course you're not going to, but you know what? It's the effort that counts, not the fucking results. So get off my back, Jack, Corn Pop was a bad dude. All right, you guys take care. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.